Hey everyone, welcome to my 4th episode of Kerbal Space Program. Now episode 3 was just a fun sandbox game and I didn't really do anything in particular. But the episode before that, where episode 4 is picking off, I had gotten my spaceship into Kerbin orbit. And in this episode I will be sending my spaceship into moon orbit and then getting it back safely to Kerbin. So, let's get started. Alright, so last time we got into orbit around Kerbin, and we got all this science here. That's actually quite a bit of science. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Research and Development Center, and I'm going to pick a few new things that I want. Yeah, I'm going to get this Science Tech, because I want to get this rechargeable battery pack, and the Science Junior. It's yet another way to get science. As you progress through the tech tree, you'll see that there's just so many different things you can do to get science. And I'm also going to get this general rocketry to get a few new engines. Most notably, my two favorites at this stage here is the T-45. The T-45 is really similar to the T-30, except the T-45, it provides a little less thrust, but it allows for engine vectoring. And what that means is the nozzle on the engine can actually move around, and it can help you. It'll help you control your ship much better. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this as well. And I still have 56 left over. I'm gonna get the flight control to get this. Small inline reaction wheel to increase the amount of torque. So it'll make my ships more responsive at the cost of using electricity, which is fine. That's a good trade-off. That is actually why I got the Science Tech and access to this rechargeable battery pack, so that I can bring extra electricity with me. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this. Of course, we're going to give it a parachute. Propulsion. We need a little bit of propulsion. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this fuel tank here. And I'm actually going to be using one of the mods that I have, the Kerbal Engineer. This helps out a lot. It gives you a thrust to weight ratio, and the total delta V, the change in velocity of each stage, which is really good information to know. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Yeah, that should be more than enough fuel. This is going to be the engine and the tank that will get the ship back to Kerbin. Now, before I keep going on with this, I'm actually going to put in one of the small... Okay, apparently I'm not going to put that one in. I'm going to put in this reaction wheel. It's a little bit bigger. I'm going to go into utility. Utility is where all of your batteries are. I'm going to get some of these rechargeable battery packs, and I'm going to slap on 4 of them. It's better to have extra and not need it than to run out of power, because then you lose all control of your ship, and then it and the any Kerbals inside will just drift off into space, and that's a whole nother mission entirely to go and get them back, if you care enough to actually go get them. So yeah, that looks good there. Since I have some new science stuff, I'm gonna slap some science on here. Actually, I'm going to try to get 2 of these science labs. Well, not science labs. It's a different part entirely. These science juniors. Now I'm going to check my delta V. See how much I have. That still appears to be plenty. Plenty of power in this engine to get us back to Kerbin, which is very, very important. I'm going to do a stacked decoupler there, and this is going to be this next stage here that I'm going to be building. It's going to either it's going to be the stage that is going to bring us into the moon's orbit, and it might also even be needed to finish up getting into Kerbal orbit. So I'm gonna have to make sure this is just a little bit more fuel than this top stage here. So, I tend to go over on how many fuel tanks I need. But yes, gonna put a stack decoupler there. Alright, now this is going to be the bottommost stage. And this is going to be a little bit tricky because I don't have any struts yet. Struts can be used, it's called stitching. You can stitch together each of these pieces so they don't bend. You'll probably see it, and if things go horribly wrong, they'll bend so much and they'll snap apart. And then your ship breaks apart, and stuff goes flying everywhere, Kerbals go flying everywhere, and it's just a bad time. It can be really fun to watch. But if you're a Kerbal inside of there, it's not so much fun, I'm sure. So what we're going to go do here is I'm going to put this LVT-30 engine down. It's going to go right down here. You see we have a lot more delta V now, but this stage 5, this does not have the thrust to weight ratio to power everything above it. It's close. Anything above 1 means that it'll be able to lift it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add extra boosters attached to the side. And then over here I'm going to have these T45 engines for the vectoring. And look at all that delta V. Now, assuming that the stage 5, that thrust to weight ratio doesn't cause any problems, as long as I'm high enough up, I will be fine. I will have plenty of fuel to get to the moon and come back safely. Yeah, this all looks good to me. Alright, now I don't have... oh yeah, that's right, I don't have the fuel pumps yet. If I had the fuel pumps, I could connect the fuel pumps from these outer tanks into this center tank. So everything will be firing at once, but it'll be draining the fuel from these outermost tanks. So these tanks will run out of fuel. I detach them, but the center tank that has been firing that whole time anyway will be full, because it drains the fuel from the outside in if I connect them from these outer tanks to these inner tanks. But I don't have that technology yet, so it's going to be a little bit trickier. I'm also kind of concerned about the whole strut situation. This is it's a reasonably sized ship, and it probably should have some struts. But this is Kerbal Space Program. It's all about pushing it to the absolute limit. We're going to the danger zone. I'm just going to go through and check my staging. I'm going to name this ship and save it. Mun, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Mun or bust. I'm going to hit save. And before I actually take this to the launch pad, I'm going to exit. I'm going to go to the mission control building and see if there's any missions. Because if I can get a little extra, that'd be great. Okay, good. There's this Explorer of the Moon. So we're going to go ahead and accept that. And we're going to do this in stages, the whole exploration of the moon. So we're going to go back into the vehicle assembly building. We're going to take this to the launch pad. I'm really concerned about the whole stability of this thing. Without any supports or struts to keep it together. But I'll do the best I can with it. We'll just have to see what happens. You see, they're kind of wobbling a little bit. But that's okay. They do. Alright, so we're getting off the ground. Everything is looking good so far. I'm going to keep an eye on my flight engineer here that gives me my Apple apps. If you don't have this mod, what you want to do is you want to monitor it in this overview map by hitting M. And you can view your apoapse, or remember it's the high point in your orbit from right here. You can just click on it and it will stay displayed for you. But I'm gonna watch it from here since I have this display down here that helps out a ton. All the stats. But it takes up a lot of room, so I'm just gonna have it just peeking out down here. Alright, so we're at the point I'm gonna want to start rolling over. I believe it's called a gravity turn. And this ship is not nearly as stable as I would hope. So I'm gonna have to be really, really careful. Oh, you know what else I should have done? I should have put separatrons, little tiny solid fuel rockets that can help in separating stages so they don't collide. Alright, so there we go, my center engine cut out, but I don't really want to do anything with that yet, so I'm just going to be dragging this dead weight around. This is a really horribly inefficient way of doing it. I wish I had the fuel pumps. But all these other engines are firing, and I think we're going to be in really good shape. I'm actually just going to burn until these run out, like that. I'm going to separate. Alright, so now that is all done, I'm going to go into this view here. I'm going to plan my burn to circularize my orbit. What are you doing, Ryan? You're so silly. Alright, so that is planned. And see, we're in space, and so these things are just going to drift off peacefully. Alright. And if you saw down there, the estimated burn was at like 16 minutes. Sometimes you gotta fire a little bit just to reset the estimated burn time, because it was a little confused with everything that happened with all the stage separations. Just a quick little burn will fix that. And meanwhile, while we wait, we can take in the view. Now, the estimated burn is at 1:14, and remember we want to do the burn when the node, this time, is approximately half. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and start now. So we have this engine going, and this is actually going a lot better than I had planned. I always plan for like the worst case scenario fuel-wise, so I usually end up coming back with extra fuel. I'm willing to spend a little bit more to make sure I don't run out of fuel. I could plan it more efficiently, but nah, doesn't matter too much. Alright, so I'm nearing the end of my burn here. I'm going to start throttling down and cut the engines. Yeah, I overshot a little bit, but I'm still in the decent range. And then I don't even have to go into the map, I can just show you down here in my flight engineer. It's not super circular, but it's a stable orbit, and that's all I really care about. I wasn't trying to get a perfect orbit. I just want something where I can take the time to orbit a few times and wait for things to line up properly. Alright, so to go to another celestial body, you're going to want to left click on it and set as target. Now, these two lines that are showing up, these are the ascending and descending nodes. It basically tells you the angle at which, you know, your orbits are different. As you can see, this is at 0.1, so we're pretty much lined up. Like, say that was at like 20 degrees. It means I would be going like this, and then the planet or moon that I'm targeting is going something like this. So then there would only be 2 points where it lines up really well. And that's what these dotted lines show up. It points out in each direction on where you directly intersect it. So I'm just going to start playing with the maneuver node and finding a good encounter with the moon. Alright, oh, there we go. Alright. So, all of this orange line is going to be my initial approach. This right here is when I'm going to first encounter, and then right here you'll see when I mouse over this again, that is where the moon will be when I first encounter it. And then this purple dotted line here is when I'm within the moon's sphere of influence. It means I'm no longer under in Kerbin's sphere of influence. I'm now being controlled by the moon. And then this here, this is key. This is my periapse with the moon. I want to get that a little bit closer if I can. If I can't really, it's okay. But it's whatever. And then this is where I escape. And then this green dotted line is if I do this burn, get it exactly, and then I just don't do anything else. I don't get into moon orbit. This dotted line will be my Kerbin orbit after the encounter. So I hope that all makes sense. So I'm just going to start fiddling around with this maneuver node and see if I can get that any closer. Ooh, 56. I'm just going to do this burn. I'm just going to let it be, and I can just do adjustments. I have plenty of fuel, and I can afford to just kind of spend a little bit of extra fuel to get it just how I want it. I'm going to throttle up. Full power to the engines. And now, if everything goes smoothly, we are going to leave. We're going to hit escape velocity of Kerbin, and we're going to make an encounter with the moon. And from there, you can get into orbit, and then you can do whatever you want. You can do science, you can make a space station, you can prepare for landing. But again, in this mission, we are just going to do a flyby. This is just showing you guys how to get to the moon. And I don't know what happened there. I ended it, but it kind of accelerated a little bit extra. That's okay. Alright, now here, since I saw the maneuver node, it shows my planned course with this dotted line, and then this blue line, which is my actual course. All the solid lines are my actual course, and the dotted lines are all what would have happened. Alright, and see, with that little bit of extra, I'm now actually on a collision course with the moon, which is not what I want. But if I was going for a direct landing, that wouldn't be too bad, because I would start getting slowed down up to this point by Kerbin. But then, of course, once I hit the moon encounter, the gravity of the moon would start pulling me faster and faster towards it. So it's always best, if you're looking for efficiency, to get into orbit first, and then you can make a much more controlled descent. And this isn't the most ideal situation, but again, I'm not really going for precision. I brought a lot of extra fuel with me. So I'm just going to go ahead and time accelerate from the map screen, and we're going to see my little ship pull away from Kerbin. Alright, here we go. And I'm just going to leave this, and then you can see the moon is a lot closer there, and then Kerbin is just disappearing off into the distance. Alright, so as we get closer... Actually, at this point, I'm going to plan another burn to stop myself from slamming into the moon, because that would just ruin our day. So there, I have a periapse of 94,000 meters there. I would just want to get that a little bit lower. 44,000, that works for me. And that burn isn't for a while. But, just to show you that you don't necessarily need maneuver nodes, I can just go point myself in the retrograde direction, which, again, is symbolized by this yellowish marker with the X through it, and that means the direction opposite to which you are going. So I am traveling in this direction, directly to where my engine is pointing. So I'm going to go into the map screen, I'm going to do this manual burn, without using a maneuver node to help me. I'm just going to throttle up just a little bit. We can see how just that little burn is going to change our course. We're just using a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of fuel. And you can see our encounter here is changing. It's shifting around. Now I can just do this, and I have a periapse that I want. This engine must not shut off immediately, because I kill the engine and it still kind of spits out some thrust yet. Alright, so I'm going to go back into map mode. I'm going to time accelerate to the moon encounter, and I've discovered that you can time accelerate through this, but sometimes it bugs out and things can get pretty goofy. So in general, I like to pass this barrier. I like to pass that barrier in normal speed. Then you'll see if you look at the nav ball, it'll go, yeah, it's switched from being oriented towards Kerbin, and now we are in the moon's sphere of influence. And from this point, we can actually start doing a little bit of science. We can observe mystery goo. Mystery goo observation while in space high over the moon. Goo seems to be less dense here. And then you can see we're getting a lot more science. We're just going to keep this data, and we're going to go into this Science Junior Materials Bay. The high radiation environment caused a few of the samples to glow. It looks like it would be fun to paint the rocket with this. And then this one, we're getting 75 science from this. And we're going to keep the data. And then I brought an extra one along because you can do the science studies from high over, and then once you get closer, you can do a close study, and it'll be an entirely new study, and you can get even more science from it. So we're just going to time accelerate a little bit. You know what? Before I do that, I'm going to focus on the moon. I can do that, you can just double click it, and I can set the focus on this rather than on our spaceship. I'm going to put us into orbit around the moon here. Alright, that's really freaking close. Alright, as you can see, the dotted line almost completely coincides with the solid blue line, which is good. It's very good. So we are right here, and then this should still be in space high over. Yeah, we already have data from high over. So what we're going to do is we're going to time accelerate. We're going to shoot ourselves around the moon. We're going to watch as our altitude decreases. And when we get near the periaps, I'm going to do the rest of the science and get the low altitude stuff. So what was our periaps anyway? 19. Alright, yeah, so we're pretty much there. I'm going to observe the mystery goo, and you can see here, it's in space near the moon. So I can keep this data, and it is entirely new. I mean, we'll be able to keep both sets of data. It won't conflict. So we essentially just double the amount of science we're going to get. I'm going to do a little bit of EVA. Report from space just above the moon's midlands. As of right now, the moon and Minmus, the second moon of Kerbin, also have biomes on the surface. I believe that they are planning on adding new biomes to the different planets. But as of right now in this update, just Kerbin's little system, Kerbin itself, the moon and Minmus, those are the only things that have biomes. And actually, it looks like I'm going to be flying over this crater, and I know that is another biome. This might be one too. I'm just going to do a couple different EVAs just to try to gather up as much science as I can. Make the most out of our trip. Yeah, from space just above the moon's far side crater. That's another 24 science right there. For some reason, my Kerbal decided to let go of the ladder. I'm going to board, and we're going to fly around over to this crater here, this big one. Makes it kind of look like the Death Star. Alright, so we're over the top of this crater. I'm going to go back into EVA. And I'm going to do another EVA report. And apparently I'm too high up, or I'm not quite over it. But I'm satisfied with the science that I got. Alright, so you're probably wondering, how the heck do I get back to Kerbin? Alright, I'll tell you. if you are traveling in this direction around the moon, so, you know, the moon is going this way around Kerbin and you're traveling in the opposite direction, you can plan a prograde burn. Seems counterintuitive, because you'll see that start to go out this way. But just keep on going with it, and then bam. And then you can just keep burning and bring the periapse down to a point where you will intersect with, or get to a point where you get low enough in Kerbin's atmosphere that you can get past it in the first go. And once I do this burn, I'll be on an intercept course, a collision course with Kerbin. So that burn is complete. You clear that maneuver node, and then as you can see here, we are on a moon escape trajectory, and it doesn't look like it quite lines up, but that is because, well, if I mouse over this, it can show you that, like, where the moon will be when this happens and everything else. It's just, as the moon is orbiting around Kerbin, things will shift into place, and it'll work out. And if we focus on Kerbin here, you can see my intercept course. Yep, there's no way I am messing up this re-entry. All I have to do is sit here. Alright, so we're here, we're safe. I'm going to recover the vessel, and it will bring us to the mission summary screen, where we can see everything that we got. Alright, we got 276 science out of that. You see all the list of the science we got and how much we got out of it, all the recovered parts, and then, of course, Brave Jebediah. If we go here, we have 2 new contracts that are completed. We got a decent chunk of science, decent chunk of money, and we achieved the orbiter on the moon. Alright, we got everything that we wanted, and now we have a lot of science to spend. But we will do that next time. Alright, we got all that done. Thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Ryan from Stromboli Games, signing off.